really wonderful.
I
Definitely.
bet it was.
Yeah, thankful. I mean, of course, my wife was at home with three kids, so you know, wasn't so great when I got home. But yeah, the weather was high 70s. Um, what was interesting is a lot of places have been closed ever since March, as far as
Wow.
restaurants and hotels, and so they have very low number of corona cases there. Um,
Mm.
and just like I had always seen on the movies and TV show Magnum PI and all that,
Mm-hmm.
beaches and the trees and plants and all kinds of mountains you see, just like on television. Blue
Wow.
water.
Oh, okay. I bet it's
Yeah,
pretty.
yeah.
Yeah.
It really is very crowded though on that because there's nowhere to build. I was on Oahu, which is the second largest island,
Oh.
and
Uh-huh.
so when you get around the edges and the coast, of course, it's green and lush, but inside I was right in the city, the whole time.
Yeah.
Or when I wasn't out when I wasn't working and then sightseeing. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
may get an opportunity to go back. I work for the Army. I work with the Army, and they have a lot of bases. And it was
Yeah.
also Pearl Harbor Day too while I was there, so that was kind of
Oh,
unique.
that was cool, probably.
Yeah, they had a bunch of events, and I
Mm-hmm.
got to see where that took place and everything. It goes
Oh,
Mr.
okay.
Brown and Mr. Mendez. How you gentlemen doing tonight? I think they got the mute buttons going on there. He's saying something, but
There. Hi. There you go.
you guys got the head. But Bill, you started out with the headphones at one point in our history, and I don't see the headphones anymore.
The computer works fine once I figured it out. So
Hey, all right. So we got five of us. I see Miss Robinson is connected. My screen bigger here. Let's see. Philip, and Miss Gilmore, right, are the only two board members we're missing at the moment. So Robertson's gonna jump on, and I don't know about Michael Payne. I haven't talked to him recently.
Mm-hmm.
It was Miss Robinson. We have Max Robinson and Lisa Roberts' son.
confusing.
Oh, I see.
Okay, so the time is 6:30. Why don't we wait till about 6:33 just to see if anybody else pops in or is having technical difficulties. Today I was able to avoid all technical difficulties probably for the first time in about 3 meetings.
Yeah, it's good to have my computer back. I've been without it for 2 months.
Wow.
For a
Is that
long
a
time.
did you get it fixed or did you buy a new one?
No, I didn't have to do either one. Well, I got it fixed, but my job did it for me.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so
Good.
it just needed a lot of updates done to it because I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't been on it for so long and just minor stuff. So that was a good thing.
Right. Yeah, when they sit for a little while, they can get out of whack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because once I went back to work to the office, see, I wasn't using it at home anymore. And I've been back to work now for a while.
But my work, they always upgrade, so-called upgrade, and then takes you a month to figure out what the hell they did and
That's true.
reload all the software you had before.
Everybody have power? Or obviously you have power now. Have anybody been losing power today?
We were without power from 4 o'clock yesterday evening until 7 this morning.
Oh, wow.
No heat, no
Oh, man.
nothing.
Y'all must have used a lot of blankets and coats.
Yeah, a lot of warm pajamas, warm fuzzy robe and socks.
Wow.
And a lot of blankets on the bed.
Man. That's when you
Yeah.
need a fireplace or something.
Well, you know what? We have one, but see,
Mhm.
my landlord don't want us using that. And
Oh, really?
so,
Mhm.
yeah. So,
Okay, well, it is now 6:33 and we have enough of a quorum to begin our meeting, and then we'll just keep our eyes out if Ms. Gilmore calls in and if Philip also shows up. So let's call this meeting to order. Good evening, everybody. Happy holidays. Good to see you guys. Wish I could see you more. First item on our agenda tonight is approval of the agenda. Is there any recommended changes for the agenda?
Yes, Chairman Watson, I'd like to be indulged for a minute. Could
Mhm.
Mr. Wheeler inquire of our viewing audience how many people are here tonight to make a public comment? If it is in excess of the 7 spots that are currently allotted, would that be possible to understand? Because I've heard a lot of talk about this particular meeting and just want to see how many people have showed up to share their time with us.
Okay, what I was gonna say too is we've got 2 public comment sections, and on the front end, we've got 4 speakers listed, but the back end, we didn't really set a limit of people. It would be good to know. Definitely, we don't have any clue. We just see each other, so.
Yeah, the reason that, I want this to be a community engagement session
Right.
and instead of the real public comment in light of what's, been happening in our community over the past few months and, recently, and to, give people who want to look at us as a liaison between the community and, potential police misconduct, and as a liaison with the, city departments that look at things like that. And if we had more than 7, I wanted to make sure that Ms. Johnson and I, as part of the community engagement team, could be able to take some comments down for folks and be able to check back in with them appropriately. I don't know, Ms.
Well,
Johnson, I was going to ask Ms. Johnson if she had anything that she'd like to add to that, either in support or not.
Mhm.
oh, no, I'm in support of that. That sounds fine with me, Nancy. As
Perhaps
we've
we
discussed
could,
it. We've discussed it in depth anyway. I'm
yeah,
sorry. What was
perhaps.
that?
I beg your pardon. You could continue.
Oh, no problem. I was just saying that I was in support of that. And I'm all for that, and I would like to hear something from the community, how they feel about the events that have occurred. And I think it would be a good time to talk about that and to get some ideas or some comments on it, and for us, then we can later discuss it ourselves, and then go back.
Okay, what
and
we
take-
looking like, Brian?
How about, excuse me, how about we go through the agenda until status of complaints, and then let's see how many people line up. And then we can sort of decide as to whether we need to augment the comment period at that point.
How many, we have people with their hands up?
Mr. Chairman, right now you have 10 people in the audience and 1 person has their hand up. You could certainly
Okay.
ask for anybody to click the raise hand icon if you wanted to get a sense as to whether they plan to speak.
Okay, so I think that we can move along with the agenda, and then, with only 10 people in the room, it sounds like, and 1 at the moment with their hand up, even if several of that, large group of that 10 wants to speak in that first public comment, I think that'll work fine. And then maybe there could be a couple more that even jump on between now and then, since it is that just getting home from work / eating dinner and all of that time window right now.
I would be in agreement with that. If we could place it like either before or after the, especially maybe after the discussion of the, or no, before the discussion. That way we can get some sense of what people think of that document as we begin a discussion or a presentation about it. That would be okay.
Okay, just to clarify here, when you say the document, are we?
The document, it's the complaint form that's being utilized.
Oh yeah, right. Okay, right. Yeah. Okay.
In congruity with what our bylaw is.
All right. So do we want to move our comments right after that? That's number 7. I don't know if you guys have the agenda right in front of you.
Yeah, I do.
Philip.
I think that, I think still having public comment where it is, and then if there is something more specific in reference to, how we're looking at our bylaws versus the complaint form, there might be some space for that separately.
Okay. All right.
Cool.
So the next item on our agenda is the approval of minutes from the prior meeting. Are there any recommended changes to the minutes from our prior meeting? No changes. I would like to say,
Just to point out that this is the November 12th meeting, not the November 24th meeting. I apologize. I had just finished the draft of the November 24th minutes, and they will be shared with everybody shortly.
okay, if there's no comments or recommended changes about those minutes, I'm just going to say minutes approved for the November 12th meeting. Can't believe how fast time is going.
Mhm.
All right. So in terms of announcements, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share? No, I've got just a couple. I talked to Mr. Blair earlier in the week, and I was asking him about the status of hiring legal counsel to support us. And that is still in negotiation. So the city, again, has identified a law firm, and the procurement office and that law firm are still working out all the numbers. So hopefully sometime in the early new year, we will have the legal representation. The other thing is, I want to thank all you guys. I was fortunate enough to get to go abroad for about 2 weeks. A really, really beautiful place, and a whole lot went on in Charlottesville during that time. And I especially want to thank Bellamy Brown for processing a lot of things. I was in a time zone 5 hours away, and writing them emails, and Bill as well, and really the whole board. So thank you guys for keeping all those various items up to speed. Also, I want to thank the People's Coalition for meeting with our board members and offering some recommendations. And additionally, would like to thank NACO too for sitting down and meeting with us. All right, so no additional announcements.
Well, Chairman, when you say the first of the year, what is the actual timeline? Because we're going to be starting, you all have started an advisory panel, in looking at a new ordinance and new bylaws coming out of that ordinance. And it would be nice to have our own independent counsel to review the work that, this board will do, and sort of like have them online and on board before it gets too deep into doing that work.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. We can get an update from the city. The other thing, though, is my understanding, and we might have to get some clarification from Lisa, but right now that the law firm that is going to support us is really only scoped out to support us in the event that we're conducting a hearing, or there's some type of conflict in something that we basically see one way and the city sees differently. And I've mentioned the fact just in conversation that, you know, I think that if there's funding, this is something we can talk about to another point, that having a firm that can also help us as we're revising this ordinance, because it's more of a firm that we can reach out to for the hearings that come up, but not necessarily scoped out for assisting us with the whole, you know, ordinance and bylaw revision.
That is
Can I
correct.
also
And
point out here that one of the things that came out, we will discuss this later on in the meeting. One of the things, excuse me?
Go ahead.
Okay, one of the things that came out of our meeting was that Maisie Osteen from the Legal Aid Justice Center, who is an attorney, has volunteered to be in our work group and is researching legal issues as we speak associated with modifying our ordinance and bylaws. So we can talk about that more later on.
yeah, and I just want to clarify that, James, your description of the role of legal counsel is correct. And in the current city ordinance, there are 4 areas identified in section 2-457. And those areas are legal questions the board may have concerning complaints, reviews of internal affairs investigations, policy recommendations, and community forums. So those are the 4 areas currently that the legal counsel would assist you with.
Okay, thank you. All right, so our next section is status of complaints. And so right now we've received a total of, since we got started in June, we received a total of 8 complaints. We've got 6 that are closed, 2 that are active. We've sent Mr. Hoffman a letter saying that if he would like us to pursue a hearing pertaining to his complaint, that you know, we could do so. There's a 75-day window of time, but Mr. Hoffman has been notified that information. Other than that, you know, we'll talk about the complaint, the clarification on the complaint receipt process later on. But I've been advised that when we get these complaints and we come on this meeting, you know, it's just limited what we can talk about these cases that are under internal affairs investigation while those investigations are being conducted. Comments? Okay, well,
I did have one question. Who,
Yeah.
Was Mr. Hoffman the actual complainant on that issue, or was it another person? I mean, who gets to actually do yeah, okay.
We actually do have one from him. The initial contact with us came from a friend of his, but he really is the complainant in that case. So, yeah. So again, he's got that. He's been snail mailed, you know, the official the letter from us. So we're moving pretty quickly, actually. That takes us to the public comment, the first public comment section. Unless we're saying we're going to talk about the clarification process first, and then go into that. Might have been a little confusion early on when we were talking about that, but well, anyway, Brian, how many folks do you have waiting to?
Right now, Mr. Chairman, we have 12 people in the audience. If you'd like to speak to the board, please click the raise hand icon in the Zoom webinar. If you're watching via Facebook, you can join us by going to charlottesville.gov/Zoom. You can register for the meeting and participate directly. Mr. Chairman, right now we have one hand raised. Would you like me to go ahead and bring that person on?
Yes, sir. We appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, this is Tracy Hopper. Tracy, you'll have 3 minutes with the Civilian Review Board. Can you hear us?
Yes, thank you, Brian. Can you hear me?
We can, go ahead.
Thank you. So thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Tracy Hopper and I live in the city of Charlottesville. And I wanted to let you know that I am very concerned that the vacancy on your board has not been filled. And I support any and all of your efforts to encourage City Council to do that quickly, as soon as possible. Because I've been following all the changes with the legislation and also the history with the board to start with. And you guys have a lot of work to do. And you need as many people as possible to help you. And this PCRB needs to be full. The vacancy needs to be filled post haste without the delays that happened with the last position that was filled. And anything that as a citizen I can do to support your efforts in getting that done, I will. And I'm curious to know what steps you intend to take to encourage that happening and getting council to fill it. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. No, anybody else?
If there's anyone else who would like to address the board, you can click the raise hand icon. Next up is, we have a couple of hands going up now. Harold Foley, you're on with the PCRB. You've got 3 minutes.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you.
I feel like that commercial. Can you hear me now? No, just joking. Hey, this is
Yes.
so this is I think Tracy hit it right on nugget. It's gonna be a heavy load, and I want to make sure that the end product is gonna be a successful product. So anything that the People Coalition can do to push for the seat to be filled, I think we will do it. I think if you understand, the People Coalition want to see this whole process to be successful. Because one thing I know for sure is not only if Charlottesville is looking at you all, but the whole nation is looking at you to make sure that everything comes together. Another thing I would love to have a conversation about is what happened at that press conference. I think it's important that the PCRB be part of any decisions or any things that happen in terms of complaints. And I hope that y'all have a conversation about that because it's really, I think community is curious about what's the next step for you all in terms of anything that happened like it did Friday. I think it was just a breakdown of communication of all parties. And so I think, if we could figure something out that can make it look a little bit different, would be great. So thank you all. And happy holidays to all of y'all. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Harold.
Mr. Chairman, next up is Walt Heineke. Walt, you're on with the board and you've got 3 minutes.
Oh, thanks, Brian. First, I wanted to say welcome to the new member, Bellamy Brown. It's nice to see you in action there and appreciate your public service. Also want to say happy holidays to everyone, and I hope you do get a break and come out to get recharged and come out swinging in the new year. I wanted to just do a couple things here, just to remind everybody, and I don't know if you've ever seen the original council meeting where the council decided to put together a resolution to have a PCRB. It's really informative to see the level of energy and commitment that council had at that time. If you haven't seen the original resolution, I encourage you to read it because it's really more of a charge to be, I don't know, public activists inside of a commission than it is to be more of a take a bureaucratic role. The energy that was put into this at the beginning after 2017 was really clear. And I hate to see the energy get dissipated by, sort of bureaucratic formulation. So I'm hoping you get a chance to look at that. Specifically, I'd like to know where we are on the hire for the executive director, where we are on the hire for the independent counsel. And again, as it's already been mentioned, where we are on filling the last spot. These three things are really important to an effective PCRB working right now. There's things that you could be doing now that may not be getting to you because of bureaucratic pipeline issues. I don't know if the city manager is acting like your ED or somebody in the city attorney's office is acting as your ED right now, but it seems like we really need to get focused in on getting those complaints that are filed addressed and resolved. A bigger picture, I think it's really, really important for y'all to look at the original ordinance that that was put into place by the initial PCRB and realize that the General Assembly has kind of expanded that and expanded those powers. So it's really important that we get to work on figuring out how to take the original initial ordinance and expand it using the state mandated or the state regulations that allow expanded power. We can't wait till the end. We can't wait till June to let this happen. It's imperative that there are signals from council and from you that this is a really important agenda item and that you're on it and that you're going to be focused in on rewriting that ordinance now. So we don't have to wait until June 30th. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
And if anyone else would like to address the board, you can click the raise hand icon in the Zoom webinar. Mr. Chairman, that was 3 speakers and there are no other hands raised. Oh, now we have another one.
Okay.
Molly Conger, you're on with the board. You've got 3 minutes.
Hey, I usually watch and don't make public comments, but I'm a little disturbed that the board doesn't have some kind of formal response to what Chief Brackney did in public last week. I think if someone making a complaint going through the normal process about something that they perceive to have been wrong is subject to a public excoriation on live television from the police chief, they have no reason to trust the complaint process. They have no reason to trust the police, and they have no reason to trust you if you won't go to bat for them. Why would Mr. Hoffman appeal his decision to you if you won't stand up for him and for his church? It undermines the work that you're trying to do, that you can't respond to that, and that you don't appear to be outraged by what happened. I mean, I think if you have no response to the police actively undermining the work that you were trying to do, you might as well just log off. It's just over for you because there's no public trust.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, there are no other hands raised.
Okay, any comments? Lots of good points.
Do we want board comment now, or
Yeah.
do you want to wait until we have that set part in the agenda?
I think it'd be a good time for folks to share some thoughts, if folks have some. I'm sure we do.
Well,
Right.
I'm trying to practice step up and step back tonight. So I'm trying to step back and see if anyone else has a comment first. My other colleagues on this board.
Yeah, same here. 'Cause, I want to say something, but I feel like I always do. So I want somebody else to say something first.
Well, Ms. Johnson, going once.
Okay,
So I guess,
okay. Fools rush in. Yeah, I think, you know, the whole issue, the Walter Hoffman case is very unfortunate. The way the chief handled it in public is very unfortunate. But just because, you know, the chief does something we believe is not wise or appropriate doesn't mean that we should respond in the same way. I think, as Mr. Foley said, this does show a lack of communication and trust between the police and the board. And more importantly, it that's telling my internet connection is not working. More importantly, it shows, as Mr. Foley suggested, weaknesses in our review model. We don't, at this point, have enough information seeking power to get in front of issues like this. And hopefully that will change in the near future.
I'll just, further add to what Mr. Mendez said. Obviously, right now we are under a review function. And I think that has to be noted until we get some of the other powers going forward. And that's work that we've already discussed that we're in the process of. I think some of the other comments that were made publicly are unaware of the fact of the work that goes on behind the scenes with regard to prepping for the ordinances, trying to get the positions filled. And we had discussed, the status of legal counsel prior to. There is a January 6th meeting to, look closer at an executive director. So we are doing work behind the scenes from with regard to the chief's, press conference. Obviously, a lot of the comments were inflammatory, but again, that purview exists with the city manager and the city council with regard to the disciplinary action. Our function here currently is that we are reviewing complaints that are provided after internal affairs review, and then we look at providing recourse if what came out of the investigation was not satisfactory to the complainant at the time. So I think there has to be more understanding of what's really going on, as opposed to some of the comments that were made without full information.
Yeah, I think that what we inherited, and this is what the People's Coalition has been, saying all along, is we inherited a very passive process to work with, and we're not fully staffed. We have no full-time staff at all at the moment. But if there's a press conference and it just happens, we don't really have the ability to jump out in front. So part of our effort, a large part of our effort, is revitalizing what we have. Right now, I feel like I almost have less power in this role than I did as a civilian, just regular person, because now I can't even talk about events when they happen, or supposedly that will sort of weaken our ability to hold a hearing, right? Like, we can't even talk about details of things that may go to a hearing, because then we'll be considered biased. So I think we need to reformat, the ordinance, the way we do business, so we can be a little bit more proactive instead of having this process where there's a complaint, it goes to us, and then we say, all right, thanks for the complaint, and we hand it to the police, and they do all the investigation. Then it could be 2.5 months later before we can do anything based on the current ordinance. And we're seeing some of the issues with, that the people have complained about for 3 years about the existing ordinance.
But when I look at it, I think we really have to be mindful that we are supposed to be that strong liaison, and we are advocating for those powers that the General Assembly enacted in this special session, and we want all of those powers. We want to be able to say, okay, this is the IA, this is the report, and looking at that specific instance, and being able to set up our own hearing without having to wait for an appeal process. And I think we need to reiterate that we want to have those capacities. We want to rework the ordinance to have those capacities, and that we don't want anybody to feel that in this community, if you want to come forward to us and anonymously file a complaint, that you're going to be doxxed. Maybe because, like you said, communication breaks down, and when communication breaks down, feelings get in place of that communication, and then it becomes personal. And hopefully that was an outlier, that it won't, communication won't happen like that again. But we'll see. But I think we have to really be very strong in our commitment and our capacity and our ability to work with the public, because that's who we are really working for and towards, is to establish trust, to establish integrity, and to create a process that most communities have never had, ever,
So the one question is, if we don't have, or until we have some ability to investigate, right, independently of the police, because a lot of our process depends on the police investigating themselves. And so how successful is this model that is based on, the police department investigating themselves, and then the police and the internal affairs having the same boss as maybe the police that are being complained about? It just doesn't seem like a very ideal setup. You need independent investigative capability, but you also have to have funding, right? Like, we're all busy. We can't investigate necessarily during the week, but it seems like you would need a full-time person, or at least part-time person, that could provide some investigation. And this isn't all just the police thing too, with the incident with Mr. Hoffman, because some of it has to do with UVA students, right? And I went to UVA a long time ago. I was in the dorm where, we were told to watch out for townies. I was like, are you kidding me? The people of Charlottesville make Charlottesville wonderful, make it a great place. So there's a whole lot of elements here, even the police force, but some other things at place that need to change as well.
And let's not lose sight of the fact, let's not lose sight of the fact that there are people that don't want us to succeed.
Right.
That's what I was getting ready to say, Nancy. It's very obvious that we do not have the full support of people and of organizations and different things that we need to have support from to succeed. And this is going to be an extremely difficult battle, extremely difficult, because you have to try to gain the trust of this community. The Black and brown communities in particular, they're the ones that need our help the most. And how do we get them to trust us when they see the lack of leadership that we have? we don't have leadership. And I'm sorry, I'm putting it out there and I'm saying it. And unfortunately, if I hurt anyone's feelings, I'm sorry about that. But I'm just telling you the way that I feel. The lack of leadership that is portrayed. You don't have anybody that you can trust. The police chief this isn't the first time that she stepped out and displayed what she's displayed, showing that it's just no type of communication whatsoever. And I really don't feel that they even want to have the communication that we need. So, we're sitting here, we need to stop sugarcoating things and be straight up about it. Because if you're not going to be honest with one another right now, right here, our own committee, be honest and forthright about what is happening. Don't be sugarcoating it. Say what it is. The lack of communication and the lack of leadership that we have here. I don't care how much we're going to get an executive director, we got to get another board member. Yes, all of that is true. But when you don't have the leadership from the people that we need to have it from, none of that's going to make a whole lot of difference. We are not going to be able to help the people that need our help. And it concerns me. It concerns me greatly. So, that's all I got to say about it right now.
I think I personally take exception to that. I've worked well with both Mr. Mendez and Mr. Watson. I think we're doing a lot of legwork behind the scenes. I think with regard to meeting with the People's Coalition, setting up avenues to move forward there. With regard to some other avenues, I'm not going to talk about those because if we want to be honest, we can go ahead and be honest. I'm just going to talk about what I've experienced with these gentlemen here. And I think we're doing some pretty solid work in conjunction with the People's Coalition. So I take exception to the assertion that there is a lack of leadership here.
Hey, Philip, if you'd like to say something, you're welcome to speak.
Yes, I'm very aware of that.
I didn't know if.
No, I'm very aware.
All right.
And,
Yeah.
Council gave us the power or pulled this together through resolution. We are in limbo. Yes, the General Assembly has done wonderful things, but that's not till July 1st. We can plan for that. But unfortunately, where we sit and the things that are happening around us, the community is looking to us for a shot in the arm, a little belief, but unfortunately, we're kind of hung out to dry, for lack of a better word, for right now. And, you guys are doing things behind the scenes, and unfortunately, a lot of this stuff we just can't talk about to the public yet. But I encourage the public and those that are listening, give us a chance. We haven't had we have just come together in the last, X number of months. And we will get there. I know everybody wants change to happen quickly, but I believe for the circumstance that we have at this time, this committee is doing the best it can with what it has to work with. And just give us, unfortunately, a little bit more time. We can't control what the chief is doing, what other folks are doing, I'm not going to get into any comments about that, but I have my thoughts of it, but this is not the forum. And I just want the public to know that, yes, we are here for you. Please come to us. Please talk with us. But I think we'll get to that place eventually. It's just going to take a little time. And you guys have exhibited tremendous patience, especially the years and years of folks that have experienced bad experiences with the police or the system or trust with the city. Yes, a lot has to be rebuilt. We have a lot of bridges to rebuild, but give us a chance. Thank you. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thanks a lot. Anybody else? Anybody else? Right, if there's no further board comments, let's go on to one of the other important items with the overall process of complaint intake that that we've been working on that is in need of change, and that is clarification. Hey, Brian, do you have, I sent you a JPEG earlier. It'll be in your email.
Yeah, would you like me to bring that up?
Yes, sir. Put that on the screen, that'd be great. Okay, so if somebody were to file a complaint with the CPD today, they would have the option to use this form. I'm pretty sure this form is outdated. One of the dead giveaways is the fact that it says Citizen Review Board, which was a prior board they had under the prior or two chiefs ago, back in the, I think, late 90s, early 2000s. And on it, it says, I authorize you to release my CPD complaint form to the Citizen Review Board. And, you know, when I read the ordinance that was adopted in November of 19, the ordinance says, Charlottesville Police Department shall forward a copy of any internal affairs complaint filed by a civilian with the Department of Police Civilian Review Board's executive director within 2 business days. Problem with this form is it does not guarantee that we will even get the complaints. It is confusing. If you don't check that box, then, you know, basically we won't get it. And not to mention the fact that this is a PDF and most people don't have the software that allows you to type or write into a PDF. So this has caused confusion. We've gotten multiple emails about it, and this is one of the things that I personally think needs to be revised. Brian, can you go back to the group view? So, I think you guys have probably looked at that too in the past. Now, Bellamy, you had a piece you wanted to bring into the fold.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. So with regard to this particular issue and another, earlier this month, Mr. Foley and the People's Coalition were kind enough to send us their perspective on the matter itself, and based on, you know, some subsequent conversation and some due diligence, we've come up with some language to address the matter, to make it more of an an opt-out as opposed to an opt-in, and then also to address the other issue with the CPD policy concerning the board's interaction itself. And I don't know if this is a time, if we're still in a discussion mode, or if this is a time to make a motion, but I do have a motion for our action to request change of those matters. You're mute.
Yeah, I second that motion. I think the wording needs, can you hear me?
Yeah. Well, I haven't made the motion yet. I would just,
okay.
I don't know if we were still in discussion,
Okay.
or if, you know, we can go ahead and do that. I don't know if the other board members have more that they wanted to add to this particular topic.
I think I'd like to hear your motion.
Okay.
And are we going to have public comment on this? I mean, you know, is this, you know, like other things that we're adopting? I mean, should we hear from the public at some point if there's anyone that wants to weigh in on this particular thing, good, bad, or indifferent? I was just curious.
I mean, that's perfectly fine. I think from what we've gathered, the public seems to have confusion over the way it's set up as the chair has stated, and in consultation with the public, we've come up with some language that would address that, that seems to satisfy the public's need, and also to reduce the confusion that exists.
Yeah, and as Mr. Holly would say, GTD.
Is
And
this
the public is not going to object. It's important to them.
Yeah, I mean, there could be complaints. I mean, I want to believe they're giving us all the complaints, but right now with that form, if they don't click that box, we may not get it.
Okay. Go ahead, Mrs. Carpenter.
I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Brown.
Okay. So in accordance with Article 2, Section A of the bylaws and Chapter 2, Article 16, Section 2-458 of the Charlottesville City Code, and in consultation with the People's Coalition, I hereby make a motion that the Police Civilian Review Board adopt a formal position statement requesting the Chief of the Charlottesville Police Department to amend its current citizen complaint form to include the opt-out language. Check here if you do not want your complaint to be forwarded to the Police Civilian Review Board. In addition to requesting reorganization of the renaming of the remaining parts of the form to be more user-friendly to the public. Additionally, the board requests on behalf of the People's Coalition, Section 4, subsection C, number 1 of the Charlottesville Police Department's General Order number 49-99 be amended to reflect the current process, that a copy of the complaint of service-related inquiry be forwarded also to the Police Civilian Review Board.
I second.
Now we need to vote on it, correct?
Yes.
Ready when you are, Mr.
Max?
Chair.
Okay,
Sure.
if you can call the vote, that'd be great.
Mhm. Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter,
Yes.
I believe Ms. Gilmore is absent. Ms. Johnson? Ms. Johnson?
I think she's on mute.
Muted.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Mendez
Yes.
and Mr. Watson?
Yes.
James, for what it's worth, I wholeheartedly agree with this language and what we're moving forward with.
Yeah, thanks very much to Bellamy, Mr. Holly, for working that out.
Appreciate that. All right. So the next item on the agenda is advisory panel on revisions to ordinance and bylaws. Now, Bill, I got you up to bat for that.
Yeah, we spoke, although we did not vote at the last meeting, that we needed a subcommittee or a work group to start the serious work of revising our documents, basically. And so I reached out to the LAJC and to Bellamy and to a number of other people. Well, actually, Sarah Burke reached out to me and suggested we all get together. And so we had a Zoom call on the 11th with Bellamy and I, Gloria Beard, Katrina Turner, Sarah Burke, and Guillermo Villa, who was a member of the previous board, and also with Maisie Osteen, who I noted is an attorney with the LAGC. Harold Foley is
Guys lose volume.
He froze.
I froze.
He froze.
Oh,
This is a
okay.
business model.
Now he's back.
He's doing a lot
And-
better though.
Yeah, I keep getting the signal that my internet connection is not working very well. And I think the consensus was that we wanted to work on the ordinance first before going on to procedures, because we didn't know how we wanted to implement subpoena power, disciplinary authority, independent investigatory power, audit advisory power. And there was a lot of sentiment for investigating hybrid models that allowed this PCRB to independently investigate selected cases that it believed to be of high importance. What came out of that was that Bellamy and Guillermo currently are looking at doing some more research on best practices, and I'll be involved in that too over the next couple of weeks. What small and medium-sized boards do to implement those kind of powers. What we're looking for is, statutory language and procedures relating to subpoenas and disciplinary authority and hybrid models. And we have scheduled a meeting again on December 31st, at which point our intention is to discuss powers, that we want to ask for, and models that we might want to recommend, and to share the information that we've gleaned from our research. We've invited Michael Payne. He could not make the initial meeting, but he has expressed interest in participating, and I hope he can make it on the 31st. If anybody has any questions or suggestions, let me know.
Just me kind of thinking here a little bit. Yeah, I think any small town, smaller city, a lot of the training we've done has obviously been on cities the size of Houston, from NACO. But any examples we can find that cities have used investigative power, because when you think about everything we've seen the last 2 weeks, again, the way our process is, we come way at the end. So if there's anything where we can be more active on the front, when somebody comes to us and we're not just we got to give it to the police to research everything, do their investigation. Like you mentioned a minute ago, I think there was an example of higher level cases where folks made a determination, okay, they'll do the investigation, or probably hire, I guess, an investigator where needed. But I think that would definitely put us in a more of a proactive posture. So any information we can find out on good examples will be helpful.
Yeah, and also, Sarah and some other folks pointed out that subpoena power is, the nuclear option for getting information. And so what we really want is a routine sharing of information. We don't have to go through a whole bunch of rigmarole to get information about all of the complaints that are coming in, and important cases and so on. And so that's another implementing subpoena power really is implementing ways to get access to important documents in general.
I just want to thank you for your report, Bill, and the group that you coalesced together with Bellamy, and this is a good, first notification of the work that advisory group with you all are going to be doing. Thank you for this information. It's very helpful and very hopeful.
Well, first off, one thing I want to point out is that this is a very ad hoc group. and there's no intent to exclude anyone. We do have the FOIA, issue that if 3 of us show up at a meeting, then we have to record it and do all that. So it's probably wise if Bellamy and I take the lead for now. But I know, for example, Philip, you were interested in helping out with procedures. That would be wonderful. Just communicate with us individually, and that would be very helpful. So, and anyone else?
All right, great. The other thing is, I asked you guys to meet with the NACOL folks, and sounds like you spoke with them, and they came up with a list of classes that may be, well, through your conversation, a list of classes that may be pertinent for Charlottesville. That would
They sent us a proposal for essentially a 12-hour training consisting of 8 1-hour to 2-hour sessions that was, fine-tuned to some extent to our needs as a newly organized small organization. And I sent that proposal around. I think we sent that proposal around to everyone. The cost was their opening offer was $5,400, which is approximately what they charged to the original board for training them. The proposed curriculum looks really good, and it has the great advantage over the national meeting webinars, in that they're actually going to be real people talking to us, and we can stop and we can ask them questions and say, how is that relevant to us? So I think this would be a very different experience. I had a thought that one way to go through this training would be to have monthly meetings, and alternate 2 weeks, in the alternate 2 weeks would be a training session. So we have a business meeting, first week of January, and then a training meeting, and 2 weeks after that, and then a business meeting, and then a training. But I'm totally open to whatever schedule anyone wants to propose, and they're totally open to doing things in the evening or weekends.
okay. Yeah, I sent that proposed scope of work to the interim city manager, and he gave us a thumbs up. So we do have the funding. So it's just a matter of figuring out the best times that we could take the class. The other question we may want to ask is if we can record the classes, so that if everybody, we have the FOIA issue, right? I mean, I don't know if we want to spend an entire meeting in a training session, but if we can record some of those classes too, that might, well, one, it could also help the city save money, and in the future we'd have an archive. So that's something.
Well, the NACOL people said that they record things routinely, so
okay, so they
don't have a problem with that.
Okay, great.
And I assume they could do the Zoom. They could set up the meeting, the electronic meetings, and then maintain an archive of the training files, which we could all access at our leisure. My only concern with the curriculum that they proposed is that I would want to put a little bit more language in there about making it specifically relevant to our situation in Charlottesville. Maybe have one session devoted specifically to our particular issues and problems. I'll send that to you and to Mr. Blair, and whatever you think.
All right. Well, Bill, I got you slated to do a whole lot of. Oh, sorry, guys. Do you get feedback? Anybody hearing feedback? Heard a bunch of feedback. Got you doing a lot of talking, Bill. Annual report outline.
Okay, I said, well, we are required in our bylaws and ordinance to produce an annual report. Originally, the annual report was due on December 5th. I have requested an extension into January since we haven't done it. And not having heard any objection, assuming that we can generate it and give it to the city council. There are a number of, if you looked at the outline, there are a number of required things in there, like, number of listening sessions and, trainings and cases that, number of investigations that we've done and number of, and so on. Those are easy to fill in. But if people want to put stuff in about, for example, community outreach, what they did, paragraph would be great. If Bellamy wanted to put in a paragraph about procedures, hearing procedures, that'd be great. And if anybody has any, there's a section there called other concerns. Anybody has anything they want to tell the city council, very publicly, very officially, write it down and shoot it off to me and we can incorporate it. I'll start pulling together more text so that by the time we have our next meeting, we can look at it and figure out what else we want to add.
Okay. Right, any board comments? Anybody?
I'm glad that we could go forward. I was a little concerned about the money part of it after, listening to a recent council meeting and a budget work session. It kind of had me a little concerned where the budget was standing with the PCRB. So thank you to this acting city manager for saying that that is available.
Good.
Go ahead, James. I'm sorry.
I was just thinking, yeah, we have to, Bellamy and I had a quick conversation, but we need to stay on their radar, because we know that the coronavirus is going to probably have some impact on the budget. And we want to make sure that, next year this board, has the money, right, to do training, to hire legal counsel, if we need an auditor. I'm seeing wide open reasons to have some kind of an investigator type person augment us. So, which we haven't discussed fully, but, so we definitely, as they're going through the budget, we want to definitely have them hear our voice, because we don't want to just be 7 volunteers.
6 so far, but anyway.
Right.
Also, one other thing about the training is that there are, a couple or 3 of the sessions. It would be I think, very useful if it were possible for example, Councilman Payne to attend, possibly even Lisa Robertson. When we start talking about powers and models and things like that. And I don't think that NACOL would have any problem with that. And I think that would be a very productive use of our time. We would finally actually have some dialogue. So another thing to think about.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Maybe even if we can cycle a couple of city council members through some of the trainings, so that everybody's, has the same level of education on all this, so that we can reduce the hiccups down the road when we propose the changed ordinance.
Yep, that's the idea.
All right. Well, that takes us to our pending business section. Item A is board vacancy. I'm going to turn down to my buddy down there, Michael Payne, see if he's got any, I see his name down there, if he has any updates for us on filling that board vacancy.
There is the normal timeline for filling it. Counselors did not follow because they had a question about what the new ordinance, what if any changes that could create in terms of what they would want to see from a new board member in terms of background and investigations, a legal background, etc. In any case, the normal deadline has passed, so I think the game plan is to announce that Monday and put that application out. There's a minimum of 30 days once that's out. And then at our next council meeting, once that's the next council meeting after that required 30 days to then fill that vacancy.
And so, Michael, when does that date they were going to put it out? You're talking about after the January 6th meeting?
Putting the application out Monday, this coming Monday, and then the soonest council meeting after that required 30 days, then filling the vacancy.
So does that mean anybody who has already applied? No, and they're saying put the application out. Don't they have folks that have already applied in the past, or are we saying that their application has expired?
I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe if you've applied in the past, you could still be considered, but it's going out to seeking additional applications in addition to people who've applied in the past. But their applications are still on record and we're aware of them.
Okay.
And it's also useful if any previous applicant reaches out to me, they can send me an email.
Okay.
And just let me know that they're interested in reapplying.
Okay, thank you. Can they use the same application that they?
Yes.
Okay, so they don't have to refill everything out.
Correct.
Right. Okay, great. Any more comments about the vacancy from the board? No. All right. Item B, executive director interview. So the HR folks have interviews for our executive director slated for January 6th. Bellamy Brown has been chosen, as well as Ms. Johnson, to be on the interview panel January 6th. And I know Ms. Johnson, you may have a work conflict, so just let us know as soon as you can, so that we can take an alternate if we have to. But and then for folks that we may have a few more people listening that haven't attended our meetings in the past, but we do have funding to hire what's called an executive director, and that'll be a full-time city employee with benefits, and that person will basically augment our mission, and that'll be helpful because we'll have somebody 24/7, even with complaint intake. That's part of what they will do, and that will sort of help us too as we're going through. Sometimes we get complaints on 2 a.m. on a Saturday, or Sundays, and just all around. So we really do need even though they're not part of the board, they're not on the board, we definitely do need to be augmented by some full-time staff. So I'll be very, very happy, and hopefully we get a high quality person. So we got high quality people on the interview panel though. That'll help.
Yeah, I again will just encourage our interviewers to be very demanding and not to settle for anything but the very best. If I understand correctly, and Ms. Robertson, I guess you can correct me if I'm wrong, the power that we have is if our interviewers disapprove of the candidate that is ultimately selected, then the city council has to explain why they nonetheless chose that person. Is that correct?
I don't believe that is correct. Let me
You can
see.
get back to us, but I think it's something like that.
Yeah, let me get back to you on that. I think that it's a little more nuanced than that. But I'll respond to you. I'll review the ordinance and we'll respond to you as soon as I can.
Thanks.
Do we know how many finalists there are for the interviews on the 6th? How many will be interviewed that day? Is that knowable?
When they reached out to you guys, did they tell you, Bill, I'm here. Yeah, I at one time I know they were down to 5. And I don't know if they still have that many. I think the city of Charlottesville, much hate to say it, has had a little bit of trouble with hiring lately. So my guess is somewhere around 3. I don't know. We could probably find out.
Yeah, we weren't given a number. And to reference what Mr. Mendez was saying in the bylaws itself, under Article 6 staff, it says that if the 2 members of the board serving on an interview panel recommend a candidate for appointment as executive director, the city manager, the city manager shall provide a written justification to the board if they select a different candidate.
Okay, yeah.
Now that I was looking in the actual ordinance itself, and it doesn't explain that as clearly as it does in the bylaws.
Okay.
Right, and I just looked that up too, and that it's the city manager referenced rather than the city council. That was what I needed to check.
Okay.
So does that mean? Oh, I'm sorry, Bill. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, what I was just wondering is that after the interview process, is there a way for us to do some email? I mean, how can we kind of weigh in on your all's impressions of the individuals that will be interviewed and your impressions as to would be the best candidate in your estimation, and should that not be maybe the one that's offered, kind of thing? Is there a way that we can have that, we'll have that intergroup email communication?
I would see that as feasible. I mean, I can consult with Ms. Johnson afterward, obviously, if she'd have to go back to work or what have you, and I could draft up, just a short synopsis of our findings, and then, circle that around the entire board for comment as to, how we would approach the city manager should they decide against the candidate that we select collectively.
Now, are we allowed to mention names and things like that when we discuss candidates, or is that confidential information?
In the hiring process that the city uses, that would be confidential information, so you wouldn't be able to discuss that publicly. But if you chose to do so, you could discuss it in a closed meeting.
And presumably we would need to, make our, support or not support our decisions fairly quickly. So it's not
That's
like
right.
we could wait for a month. Yeah, so, okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, could we say something like candidate 1 was, had a good education, but was not much short on experience, and candidate was that, or would that be? I guess
yes, I think that would be fine, as long as you're not sort of publicly disclosing information that would let people watching your meetings figure out who the candidate is. It's just in sort of normal city appointments during the hiring process, that information is considered confidential personnel information. And, sometimes candidates wait until later stages in the process before they let their employers know that they're looking for a job or that sort of thing. So, but yes, you could discuss in generalities what you like and don't like, you know, with reference to candidate 1 or 2, that sort of thing.
I think that sounds reasonable.
Mr. Chair, I can also work on getting a number for you in terms of how many candidates there are. The acting city manager reached out to me, and I was the one that followed up with Mr. Brown and Ms. Johnson, and he didn't indicate a number. So I'll get that information and get back with you all.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Any more comments, questions on the executive director position? Nope. All right. All right, Mr. Wheeler, are there more people in the chat room? Questions?
Mr. Chairman, we have 11 people in the audience right now. If you'd like to speak to the board, please click the raise hand icon in the Zoom webinar. At this point, the board will hear from each person for 3 minutes, and each person will get 1 opportunity to address the board. First up is Sarah Burke. Sarah, you're on with the board. You've got 3 minutes.
Hey everyone, I just want to say thanks. Thanks so much for your work. I know you all are talking a lot about behind the scenes work, and believe me, I know there's a lot of it and it takes a lot of your time and attention, and I really appreciate it. I'm a little bit concerned about like the inability to talk about the work that you're doing behind the scenes, which was mentioned by a couple of you. I know Bill mentioned the work that he's doing with the subcommittee for drafting a new ordinance and doing that research, but there was some sort of coded talk about not being able to say some of the work that you're doing publicly. And I just want to remind you of the importance of being transparent and open with the public of the work that you are doing, because I think a lot of building trust is about telling people what you're doing in all of the many hours that you guys are spending behind the scenes. So I would love to see a little bit more of that. And similarly, James, you made a comment about being concerned about saying something about an incident while it was maybe ongoing, or if you were going to have a hearing. And I'm wondering where you got that advice. I worry that there's been some chilling effects, both by the police department in having people, feel like they're going to be put on blast if they file a complaint, along with anybody who's supportive of that. And I wonder where you all have gotten the advice that you all can't, be sort of a liaison and assistant to people who are filing complaints, and that you can't talk publicly about publicly shared information. So I understand that there's some confidential information that you might receive, but when there's information that's going out in press conferences and being nationally shared, I think you all have a responsibility to speak on that, and not to share information about whether any policies or practices were, against the CPD's policy. Nobody's, I don't think, asking you to make any sort of official comment on anything other than, what's been made publicly available at this time. So I think that's an opportunity that's missed in building trust, because I do think there's sort of been a chilling effect. So I'm wondering if you can share who's sort of giving you the advice that you cannot talk about certain things publicly, and sort of where that's coming from, that it worked out. And then my very last point is about the motion. I'm glad you all changed that language. I'm wondering why there has to be any opt-out language at all for sharing with the CRB, because according to the ordinance, you're just supposed to get complaints, period. So I'm wondering where the idea that you all have to have a checkbox to either receive the complaint or not comes from. Again, sort of who's giving you all the advice that you're getting, and how that's coming across to the public. Thanks a lot.
Mr. Chairman, next up is Don Gathers. Don, you're on with the board, and you've got 3 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. I want to echo the sentiments of Ms. Burke and thank you all for all the work and all the efforts and all the time that you're putting in. I too have a similar concern though about the transparency issue. One of the main tenets of the organization of this commission was based on transparency and the fact that the community had not been receiving it and how important that it was to provide that. I also have some question about if we already have qualified applicants in a previous pool, why we need to reopen the process to try to secure more applicants. And I was somewhat confused when Ms. Johnson was talking. I was under the impression that her comments was about a lack of leadership in and from the city as opposed to on the commission itself. So if I can get some clarification on that, because I think that Mr. Brown, you felt that it was being directed towards the leadership of the commission, and that wasn't the general feel that I got from Ms. Johnson. So if we can get just some things tweaked, just some things cleared up. But again, I think that it is of vital importance to your work and the ability to do your work, as well as to the community as a whole to gain trust and gain footing that in and as much as possible and whenever possible, that the transparency remains in the forefront. All right. Thank you all for your time. I hope that you all have absolutely wonderful holiday celebrated however you choose to, but be safe.
Thanks, Mr. Gathers. Would you like us to send you a invitation to our next task force meeting on changing our governing documents?
It is something I believe that I would be interested in if the board is interested in my working on that.
Sure, we'll send it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Watson, there's no other hands raised. Oh, we have another one. As soon as I say that. Walt Heineke, you're back on with the board. You've got 3 minutes.
Oh yeah, I have to apologize because I've been trying to listen partially to the Human Rights Commission meeting, which is double booked for tonight. But was there a mention of when exactly you all are going to hire the independent counsel? Like when is that decision going to be made? And when can they start helping you get some independent advice on moving toward a stronger ordinance and some of the other issues that you're dealing with now? And then I had another question that might be for Councilor Payne, but I do recall in the past when the city has made hires, certain hires, that there have been citizens on the hiring panel. And I'm wondering if there are going to be any citizens on this hiring panel for the ED, for the executive director, because I think it's important to have some citizen input on that process of reviewing the applications and also determining, what's the best fit of those applicants to the mission of the CRB at this point. So those are two issues that I think I haven't heard specifically, and I'm still unclear about in terms of figuring out where y'all are at this point. Thanks.
And last call, anyone else who would like to speak to the board, click the raise hand icon. I don't see any other hands. Mr. Watson.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Maybe I can answer some of Walt's questions real quick, since I think he was probably listening to the Human Rights Commission when we talked about the legal counsel. But right now, the city of Charlottesville procurement office is in negotiations with the law firm, and hopefully in probably mid-January, we'll be hiring that firm. But they're not really set up to assist us day to day in terms of revising the ordinance. They're more set up to support us in the event of a hearing. That way, John Blair or Ms. Robertson aren't sort of representing a city police officer, let's say, and our board at the same time. However, it was mentioned earlier that we do have some assistance from LAJC at this point as we're moving forward with revising the ordinance. And in terms of yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No,
I was going to say,
you're going to talk about it. Yeah.
I don't know. That's a good question about civilian or citizen involvement on the ED interview panel. I don't know. Max may know. But we do have, of course, 2 CRB members that will be on that panel.
I believe that, yeah, there's CRB members on this panel, but I don't believe that there are citizens outside of CRB members on that panel.
Okay. We can find out. Anybody got any other points of discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to respond to Mr. Gather's comment. Mr. Gathers, I took the same impression that you had taken with regard to Ms. Johnson's comments. However, Ms. Carpenter specifically stated leadership on this board, and I felt that that was an unfair characterization. So I felt the need to give a little bit more detail about what actually takes place.
And if I too may clarify, I was speaking of city leadership, not board leadership. I was speaking of lack of leadership from the city, not from our board. Okay.
Go in peace.
Right. All right. So the other thing, speaking of leadership, in our next meeting, first meeting of the new year, which is slated for January 14th, we will be nominating a new vice chair as well as nominating a new chair based on the bylaws. So maybe bylaws and ordinance, but I believe the bylaws. So in that meeting, have new leadership on it. And so,
Maybe.
you know, what'd you say?
Maybe.
Yeah. So so just, you know, if folks would like to you know, kind of jump into the vice or chair position, just think about that, and we'll be voting in that meeting. Like, anything else? No.
Well, I would like to talk about a little bit about community engagement, what Ms. Johnson
Oh,
and
yeah.
I are doing. Is it okay? Is it okay, Ms.
Yeah,
Johnson?
yeah. Yep, definitely.
We decided that we're going to use a little bit of technology here since the pandemic has not changed how we're doing a lot of these community meetings. So we are engaging and talking to different churches and different community groups, those that have Zoom services or those that have Zoom monthly meetings, and inquiring if they would be interested in having one or both of us attend their Zoom and talk about a little, not like a long time, you know, because that's a lot on a webinar to keep looking at the camera, but to talk a little bit about where the PCRB started from, what's been going on since, you know, we were impaneled and first started meeting in June, and maybe a little bit about what the General Assembly did in the special session, a little bit about how to file a complaint, you know, with our, we'll see how that, you know, how the new language works and everything. So that's where we're going, and we're hoping to do 2 in January, and try to start that on an ongoing monthly basis. So more to be said about that.
Excellent.
Okay, great. Right, anybody else got any last minute thoughts, comments, questions? Oh, by the ways. No. Right. So yeah, we will also kind of link up with NACOL and figure out a way to best provide, sort of facilitate a training schedule that we can all kind of work within. And then Bill said they're used to recording training sessions too, but that's going to be extremely helpful. So you'll look out for some information on that in the upcoming weeks.
Yeah, these are extremely smart ladies. I mean, they're just well worth talking to, you know, so it's a lot different from a webinar.
Yeah, those webinar, yeah, it's and you can tell when you watch the webinars, they weren't intended for an online audience, you know, necessarily either. So anyway, well, I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, a safe time, and gets to see the family you can see despite the coronavirus. And we will be continuing to work and staying in touch. And you know, I've enjoyed working with you guys, and this has been a huge learning experience. And looking forward to the new year. Guys, have a good night. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays.